morning, guys. Hopefully you can't hear the fridge next to me because it's really loud and clicking for some reason. It's Tuesday, September 8th, and so we just had Labor Day weekend this past weekend. I did literally no work. I just sat in my house and watched tennis all weekend, which is pretty bad. In general, I've been feeling like I've kind of lost my routine a little bit. I haven't really gotten from it's summer, I'm just studying so that I can maintain, to it's school time, I need to study so that I can pass and do well in my classes mentality. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that I'm home and I've always had a lot of trouble studying at home, so I will definitely be grateful to move into my apartment coming this Saturday. But unfortunately my first exam is the Monday after I move in, so I definitely need to prepare a lot this week, and I probably should have prepared a little more last week, but I do think my situation is still salvageable right now. So I just want you guys to know that I am not perfect. I don't prepare 2 weeks in advance for every single class, and I don't have a perfect studying schedule. Sometimes things do get away from me, and I think that's just kind of how it is. And the real test is if you can adapt to those circumstances and just make it work for you. So I have a quiz today at 10 o'clock on the lecture material that we had last week, and then I have a couple lectures this morning. I am currently working on my USMLE questions. I just answered them and I am reviewing right now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I made coffee, but I changed the grind of the coffee this morning to a more coarse ground, so I want to see if that makes a difference at all. Do you like my mug? I honestly don't think it makes that much of a difference at all. Alright, so I'm going to keep reviewing those USMLE questions, and then I'm probably going to start on my Anki cards for the day, or I'm going to watch some Boards and Beyond lectures relevant to the stuff that we did last week, just to continue preparing for the quiz until 10 o'clock. Alright guys, here we are, and here is my ridiculous to-do list. There's a lot of micro from this past week. We did all the possible infections of the GI tract, and so there's no way I'm gonna be able to get through all these videos before my quiz, so I'm thinking I'm just gonna wing it. But then after the quiz, I am going to go through all of these organisms on Sketchy. Yikes. The nice thing is a lot of these organisms have one or two high yield things about them, and then there's not a ton of other information. So many of these videos are between 6 and 8 minutes. Obviously, some of the bigger ones like hepatitis B are going to be longer, but I'm not super worried about getting through all of them today. I do also want to get through some Boards and Beyond lectures. I have a lecture today from my school on the pathology of inflammatory bowel disease, so I'm just going to watch the corresponding Boards and Beyond lecture and do the Anki cards for that, and I might skip ahead and do the colon cancer one, even though we haven't gotten to that in school yet, just so that I can make up some of the lost time from driving. And then I did my USMLE questions, and if I have time, I'd like to do 25 boards questions from the GI topics, just because we're getting to the end of GI now, and I want to start testing myself for the final exam because it's gonna be rough. Definitely not excited to take this quiz because I don't know any of those organisms really. I'm still winging it because there's no way I'm gonna get them done. I might start watching some of them now, but I'm definitely scared. But honestly, it's okay. I've done well on all the other quizzes so far, so I can kind of sacrifice one quiz. They're worth very few points. It's just concerning because they're probably a reflection of how well you're gonna do on the actual exam. So I feel like if I do poorly on one of the quizzes, I'm going to do poorly on that section on the exam, which is kind of a silly way to think because you use your quizzes to guide your studying on what you're weak in. So I don't know, I might take the L on this quiz. But first, more coffee. Okay guys, so instead of studying for the actual quiz that I have at 10, in preparation, I have gone ahead and made filter decks of all the organisms that I want to try and do today. This is 676 cards of new cards on top of the 370 reviews that I have today. Low reviews, but I'm gonna be throwing a ton of new cards, unfortunately. I probably should have spaced this out better, but this is just how it is. And then if I get those 676 done, then I'll worry about the 88 card colon cancer deck and any additional work that I need to do today. I did not set myself up for success this week. That sucked. Oh my god, that was awful. Ugh. So the reason it was awful is because there's so many freaking GI organisms, and it's so hard to differentiate between them because they all cause very similar symptoms, and you have to like use context clues on the like duration of illness or the incubation of the illness. That was quite literally probably the hardest quiz and or test that I've taken at medical school to date, because there were just so many organisms and they're so similar. But whatever, we're gonna move on from it. I have some laundry to do, and as you can see, I got all my stuff set up after the quiz so that I can watch sketchy videos on all the organisms that I should have known for today.
Well, we decided to take a trip through the wilderness and track down that majestic beast.
Alright guys, so I got a message or a comment on one of my previous videos that asked me to touch a little bit more on how I condense my PowerPoints and my lecture slides in order to be able to remember either what's important or just remember everything that's important on the slides. And so I think I have discussed a little bit about my process in the past, but obviously since it's always changing and I don't think I've ever gone like into clear detail specifically this semester on what I do for my lectures, I figured I would just share that with you now. Unfortunately, today's lecture comes from a professor who does a really good job of only giving us like the really specific high yield details. And obviously that's a good thing normally, but if I'm trying to show you my process while I'm trying to like cut down on the information on PowerPoint slides, it's not as great of an example, but it's the only one I have today, so I'm just gonna do my best. So the first thing I do is I go to our Blackboard website. That's where they upload all the PowerPoints for us to go through. So I'm gonna go ahead and go on there and check out the PowerPoint. Ideally, I would do a first pass of the PowerPoint the night before while I was loading it onto my iPad. As you can probably tell, I've been a little bit behind. So I actually just am downloading it right now. But normally I would like to go through the PowerPoint slides and just get an idea of what we're learning this week. I knew that the lecture today was inflammatory bowel disease, and I'm pretty familiar with that topic, so I wasn't super worried about going through the PowerPoints. Anyway, I've downloaded the PowerPoint onto my computer now, and I'm just going to export that as a PDF. Not going to show my screen because obviously I want to maintain the professor's privacy. They have their names and things on the slides, but when you have your PowerPoint open, you can just click File on the top and then Export, and then I change the file format to a PDF if it isn't already a PDF, and I'll go ahead and save that on my computer. I'm going to open up the folder where I saved that PDF and use AirDrop to send the PDF to my iPad. I've airdropped to my iPad, and it'll pop up and say AirDrop. Oh, my pencil! Yikes. All right, you can see here, it pops up with this window that says open in whatever app, so I choose Notability. So I'm just going to click Create New Note, and that will take me to the screen where I can input what I want it to be called and what folder I'd like to place it in. Now that I have the lecture loaded up, I'm going to download the recording of the lecture that was just posted, and usually I watch it 2x speed just because it saves me a lot of time and I can comprehend the information just fine at a faster speed. So that is usually what I do. And basically my process is just jotting down any extra facts or anything, highlighting while they're talking, and then if he says that something's going to be very important for the exam or it's going to be a very high yield boards topic, I'll just put a little star next to it and make a note of it. As you guys know, after that I will find the topic on Boards and Beyond, and then if it's relevant, I will also find the topic on Sketchy or other boards resources like First Aid, and I'll untag the Anki cards associated with that topic in each tag, so like the Boards and Beyond tag, the sketchy tag, etc. And that's kind of how I narrow down the information from the PowerPoint slides and figure out exactly what is high yield and what isn't. And I think that's kind of what the person was asking me, because it can be really overwhelming to just have hundreds of words on a slide, and how do you know what's important for your tests? And to be honest, I've definitely been prioritizing boards information versus random clinical facts or information that my school thinks is important that might not necessarily be tested on boards. I feel like I'm getting enough passes with the information in order to be able to do well on the test, and I'm really prioritizing board studying right now. So one thing that people do usually is they'll take notes on the PowerPoint either during class or after class, and that is one way you can condense your notes. But because I have access to the scribe notes, which is basically just a transcript of the lecture, I don't feel the need to create a more condensed note, because I feel like that never really helped me. I didn't really reference it, and so I don't want to waste time doing that. I would much rather use that time to do note cards. That's kind of basically my whole process. And just to review, the first pass would be to look at it the night before or the day of, which I haven't been doing as much, and I definitely want to get back on that. Second pass is watching the lecture. Third pass is using any additional boards resources on the topic in order to find the high yield information. And then I continually review those Anki cards over time in order to solidify that information in my long-term memory. So I hope that helps, and I'm gonna go ahead and watch my lecture. By the way, guys, if you didn't know, if you have a video open in QuickTime Player and you want to watch it at an increased speed, all you have to do is hold Option if you're on a Mac and click the double arrow 9 times in order to get it to 1.9 times speed. I haven't bothered looking it up, but if you go all the way to 2 times speed, it loses audio, so I'm not sure if QuickTime Player is able to adjust that much.
On top of that, you can have strictures that ultimately can.
So that lecture is over. It was a really short one. It was only 43 minutes, right, or even less. 37 minutes regular time, which means it took me less than 20 minutes to watch it. And I wanted to show you guys in this last clip that this professor happens to put some practice questions usually at the end of his slides. If he has extra time, he'll go through them. So I always do those without listening to his explanation first, just to make sure that I have properly understood the lecture. And it's not high stakes or anything. If I get something wrong, I'll go back and review why I got it wrong. But that's just another component of the lecture that I really like that this particular professor puts in. So it's fun when they have little like sample quiz questions and things. Rather than going straight to Boards and Beyond to watch the Boards and Beyond module on inflammatory bowel disease to get a little bit more of a high yield discussion of the topic. Not that this wasn't high yield, because like I said, this professor does a very good job, but I just like to cover all my bases just in case. I think I'm gonna start with sketchy to just do something a little bit different than watching the same lecture basically over again. And I will catch up with you guys when I do decide to use a boards resource for inflammatory bowel disease. Okay guys, so I just finished the viruses and the parasites, all the sketchies that I needed to do. I decided to knock those out first because they're shorter than the number of bacteria that I have to do, and the bacterial videos just tend to be longer in general. So I noticed that I was feeling a little bit tired and kind of over the studying, so I'm going to give myself a short break, come back to it by watching the Boards and Beyond inflammatory bowel disease lecture, and then do those note cards, and then start the sketchy bacteria note cards. So far so good. We'll see if we can maintain this productivity level. I'm not sure. I would definitely be excited to get all those sketchies done today, but I know that that's potentially not very realistic, so we'll just see what happens.
Our module on inflammatory bowel disease.
Okay, updates. I shouldn't have taken a break because I forgot that I had a 2-hour meeting tonight. So it sounds like we're probably not going to get anything else done tonight, but I'm going to go to that meeting and I'll let you guys know if I do anything else or if I just decide to go to bed. I might put this Boards and Beyond video on hold because I can knock out a couple sketchies in an hour, but I can really only do one Boards and Beyond and the associated decks because they're significantly longer and larger. So that's kind of annoying, but it's also my fault. Hey guys, so I just ended up finishing my Anki review cards while I watched tennis with my dad. Definitely focused a little bit more on the cards and a little bit less on the tennis, which is good for me. I didn't end up getting through the rest of those sketchies or through the IBD video, so I'll take you through what I do tomorrow morning so that you can get like the full effect of how I compress, or I guess like organize my lectures, so you get that like full process and full answer. But I think by this point you kind of already know what I do, so I think that's the only thing I'm going to show you tomorrow. So I will see you in the morning. All right guys, good morning. It's 11 o'clock on Wednesday right now. I am gonna have to leave at 1 o'clock in order to commute to school for my lab, but I have about an hour. I finished all my Anki reviews, so I'm gonna finish up the inflammatory bowel disease, Boards and Beyond, and hopefully start on those note cards. So I hope that answers your guys' questions on what I do. I'll film little clips and put them over here, but I looked back at the question and they asked me really how I condense PowerPoint slides, and to be honest, like I don't really do that because I'm not really taking notes. I do have the scribe notes. Somebody from our school is paid to scribe word for word what the lecturer says. So between the two of those things, I have a lot of information, and instead of condensing down PowerPoints, I tend to use boards resources to find what's high yield from those topics. So I hope that helps. I'm sorry that I don't actually condense the PowerPoint slides, but to be honest, in medical school, I feel like that's a little bit of a waste of time just because there's so much information that going through every single PowerPoint and trying to condense would take a lot of time, and it's not very efficient. Definitely not as efficient as going through high yield note cards. So yeah, that's everything from me. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I'm gonna be moving into my apartment pretty soon, and I'm honestly pretty stressed because I have a lot of stuff going on, a lot of lectures to watch, a lot of things to study, and not a lot of time to do it. So I will probably either film a move-in vlog or maybe film an apartment tour once we get everything set up. But thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe down below if you want to see future med school vlogs, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.